Spent all the time that I had to trying to overcomplicate the answers. I spent all my time. It's just too much emotional blackout. Mental health, I meant to pull myself back out. Act like you know, and I'll act like I know better. Try to notice all the colors in the crow's feather. No pressure, same damn low sweater. She knew me back in the 80s, we used to go together. Make it last forever, at least until September. I don't remember, mixed up in my blender. It's a mixture. I probably took a gang of pictures of the hieroglyphics that you painted trains and the bricks with. I only climbed from the back of the bus to try to sink into the shadows of the rust. I'm overly sensitive to your potpourri energy. Roll another recipe of homeo remedies. Had to make space for new memories. Maybe that's why I forgot you eventually.
I got the devil on my doorstep, he still hasn't knocked. Well, shit, I can't remember the last time I forgot. I always thought I died by the hands of things that I thought. I met God at heaven gates just to see what he got. She smoked my roaches from the ashtray every morning. We made the song an accident, a train of thought, forgot we was recording. Songs full of my thoughts, I know they're not important. I know God is still sad, outside is still pouring. Always stay in my element, but I feel foreign. Looking at the glass, it's half full and I'm still pouring. Y'all full of yourselves and y'all still born. Shit, I won't even eat unless I kill for it. Feelings janky like young life on Merrill's trying to steal Porsche. Staring at the eye of the storm, it's still gorgeous. I found love in other humans trying to steal more of it. In between all the choruses, I spent all the time that I had to trying to overcomplicate the answers. I spent all the time that I had to trying to overcomplicate the answers. I spent all the time that I had trying to overcomplicate the answers. Spent all the time that I had trying to overcomplicate.
They appreciate your drone shredding up their tent. This was your sister's wedding or something?
Marcel.
Told me that? That was close.
What are you flying there? Nice. Oh. I like the grade you put on it.
Can't believe you made it through that little tight little opening there.
Welcome in, everybody. Hope
That's
you
what
guys
she
are
said.
doing awesome. We've got XJet with us just now too as well. Let me add him quickly. Hope you guys are all doing awesome. Thanks for coming in today. We're going to be talking a little bit more about our side of remote ID, our Canadian regulations that we have, and what we've got to be doing and stuff like that. So we're going to have a little bit of introduction here. Just give me 1 minute to organize OBS with XChat here. The phone. Alright, so I think there he is. Welcome, and Don and XChat with us, and Dancilla. Yay.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, alright. Mic check. I think everybody's sounded good earlier. XChat, you're.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Don. That's terrible.
That was awesome. That was awesome. All right.
There's always
perfect.
one. There's always one.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Good to see you guys. So yeah, we've started doing a couple of things with the, for me in BC, and as well Danzilla is going to be taking his basic test, and I'll be doing my basic and advanced. For this year, as well as I'm probably going to be going back and doing my Mac license, only because now I'm getting more into flying planes, the wings and stuff like that. I'm definitely going to be jumping back into the club, even though there's still issues, which we're going to talk about. Yeah, I still got to get out and fly. So our community's kind of big in the Mac field here in Vancouver and Coquitlam stuff, so for me it just makes it more worth it to join them instead of trying to fight the big fight that's going on right now. But
Yeah.
I mean, Danzilla, you got any places like that kind of in your area, or are you more or less just solo still?
I'm solo still. I don't know anybody. I keep my ear to the ground for other people around me, but I don't think there's anybody in my
Doesn't it make your
area that
goggles get
flies
dirty on one side?
freestyle. Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, no, I just fly out here in my forest. I'm all alone. I really have no need to feel the need to get my license or anything like that, but I like to, try to toe the line a little bit, and I want to go out and fly places, so I don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, I didn't
So,
know
yeah,
where your
I'm looking
closest
forward to it.
airfield would be for you to even fly with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any model places around here actually. I haven't actually looked for a field, so I don't know.
Yeah, I can't think.
But yeah,
Don, you're in
I'll
Ontario
look into
like
that.
him, but do you know whereabouts there's a close one to? He's up in like Huntsville area.
Oh, around
Yeah,
Huntsville?
Muskoka.
I don't know. I'm not a member of MAC, but I know there's a MAC field, I believe, near Kingston. That's about less than an hour
that's
from where I am, and
Right.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
a long
This is
way
going to look
down.
like my OnlyFans page now. Take my shirt off.
There you
Jeez.
go. Yeah, I heard it's actually starting to be summer over where you are. The weather's getting
Yeah.
nicer.
22
Yeah.
degrees today, they reckon.
Awesome.
That's almost
Nice.
exactly what it was
Autumn
here
is
too,
starting here.
except on the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah. We only got up to like 18 today, I think. So, where I am.
We're about that, but we've got rain again, which is nice because we badly need it up here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so I guess we had a couple questions here about the Canadian regulations and stuff. Do you want to just give us a quick update before we start asking a bunch of crazy questions for you, and just give us like something that anything that's new that's changed for us,
Yeah.
or anything that we just maybe just don't know. There's
Sure.
not a lot of Canadians in the chat right now, but it's good for people to if they rewatch or whatever. But
Yeah, sure. Sure. So the Canadian regulations are centered around a couple of things, either having your basic license or your advanced license. Getting the basic license is pretty easy. It is, sorry, Marcel.
it's all good.
I mean, it's relatively easy if you study, if you know what to expect. Really, it's a multiple choice exam, 60% pass rate. It's online, open book. I have videos out on it. I sell study guides, but for the basic, I mean, you can get through the basic without too much difficulty. The advanced, on the other hand, is a huge other story. It's much more detailed, but more importantly, you have less time and you have to get 80% pass rate I think is it an hour, something like that. Anyway, it's very, very compressed, very tense. And then you pass a flight review, which is actually relatively straightforward. You just basically demonstrate your ability to fly, your understanding of some basic understanding of the rules and things like that in front of a live person. So all of that is in place. Oh, and you have to register your drone or RC aircraft with each one, $5 each.
One for each FPV drone, even though
Yep.
you can change it.
Yep.
Because I
Anything
know
over
Mac, you can do multiple drones, I believe.
yeah, but under the Canadian regulations, you have to register each one. It is a one-time fee, so it's not like you have to pay every year or anything like that, and it's $5. The catch is, and this is maybe a good segue to the new proposals underway right now in Canada, is that they're planning on doubling that to $10, just because, this is more fair to the taxpayers, that if you're getting the benefit, as they actually referred to it, the benefit of registering your drone, you should be paying for that benefit. Now, the fact that there is no benefit, you get a benefit from putting your phone number on your drone, but yeah.
So you could argue that the payment should be zero.
It should be zero. They should be paying us. I don't know. Yeah.
No kidding, eh?
But
Yeah.
So
Danzilla, your mic
Dan,
went bad. Your mic went
You're-
bad,
you're-
Dan.
what were you fixed before? Do it again.
Ooh.
So right now we're going through a consultation phase. In fact, it closes. The feedback session closes in 3 days on the 22nd of September.
Right.
So if you haven't already done so, I encourage anyone who has an opinion, as if none of us have an opinion, to get on the site. I have various videos on this with links underneath in the description showing how to get to the place where you can put feedback. Put your feedback in. They're obligated to read every line of it. So the Drone Pilot Association of Canada did put in a position paper, which was just a little over their maximum size of 20,000 words, or characters, excuse me. But let me just run through, if you want, Marcel, I can just run through some of the bigger changes. So yeah, they're increasing the fee from the registration fee from $5 to $10. The rest of the stuff, like the exams, is staying the same. They are introducing some rather hefty fees for SFOCs, Special Flight Operating Certificates. So if you want to fly outside the rules in any dimension, over 400 feet, at an advertised event, beside the local military aerodrome, anything like that, you have to pay $150 or $2,000, depending on which kind of thing you're doing, for the privilege of asking permission to do that operation. And you may not even get that permission. And by the way, if you're an American, for example, even if you have your Part 107, if you want to fly in Canada, if this regulation stuff goes through, you have to pay $150 for the privilege if your drone is over 250 grams. It's madness. That part just blows my mind.
Big time.
So yeah, so registration fees. Most of the new regulations that they're proposing are for bigger drones, for cargo stuff, for commercial operations,
Right.
and
Makes
that's
a little more
fine.
sense,
I mean, yeah, I mean, go to town, fill your boots, have all sorts of regulations for those guys, but they've done very little to simplify. Well, nothing to simplify the regulations for recreational pilots, small commercial pilots, stuff like that. They have introduced two things that are kind of nice. One is what they call extended VLOS, or visual line of sight, which means that if you have your advanced and you have a guy standing beside you who also has their advanced, you can fly out to, I think it's 3.7 kilometers. It's some even number in nautical miles that all of us, have on our speedometers and stuff. But anyway, you can fly a fairly distant flight if you have a visual observer who has their advanced certificate, which makes no sense. If you've got eyes, that's all you need.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and a voice. But so you can do that operation. They also now allow you, and brace yourself. I mean, this is the fact that they're allowing us to do this kind of risky operation is amazing. They now allow us to fly, if you have your advanced, behind a building.
Wow.
I know.
In the building, behind a wall in the building.
Well, if you go inside, then the regulations don't apply. So you're all thumbs up.
Yeah.
You're no
You're not
longer in the
allowed to fly
airspace.
around a tree. Not a tree. A building is okay.
Trees are living things.
No. They're far too risky.
Trees are dicks.
Yeah.
Man, oh, man.
So
Where do
those are
they dig
two
these
good
people up
things.
from?
The thing that I'm really annoyed about is that they continue to add little prescriptive things into the normal regulations. Like right now, if you fly a drone over 250 grams, you're supposed to have this list of written down procedures, like what to do to take off, what to do to fly, and it's not that insane. And, I put it all into the Drone Pilot Canada app just to let everyone off the hook. It's like, there you go. There's all your procedures. Go to, it doesn't matter. After you get through your flight review, you just have it. And it's like done. But they've added
Aren't you supposed to have
more
like a written risk assessment too? And
Yeah,
draw a map
yeah.
of where you're going to fly and
Yeah.
all the risk
So
assessment
this is the
and
one
stuff,
that they
and
added. They
cones
actually
and a
want,
vest.
yeah, no safety vest is required. But what the one that they've added, the procedure they want. Okay, so keep in mind, this is for people flying within visual line of sight of their drone, whether or not we do that. But if you do, you need to have a written procedure as to what you are going to do if there's a manned aircraft that's about to crash into your drone.
Just panic and scream like a girl. That's what I do.
That's what I'm going to put in the app. As the default.
Totally.
Dive.
Run away! Run
With your
away!
hands up in the air.
So you'll like this. You'll love this, in fact. So they had a bunch of Q&A sessions, Transport Canada. And so I was on one of those things, and they were kind enough to, first of all, recognize who I was and all that. And they said, your position paper, we got it the other day, and it's really good, and, all that kind of stuff. So I said, I want to know why you think it's okay to keep adding these prescriptive things like this. What do you do if you see a manned aircraft? And I used a bad word when I described it, because I said, you're going in the wrong direction. You should be going towards non-prescriptive rules, things that put the onus on the pilot to define and manage the safety, as opposed to just a list. And I said, going in that direction, and I apologize in advance to those with tender ears. I said, going in that direction is dumb.
At least it's not moist.
So the host of the show, the manager who is operating this Q&A session, immediately jumped in, like literally jumped online and said, I want to remind our speakers and our questioners to be respectful of others and not to use disrespectful language like dumb.
Oh, you're such a shit
What a
disturber.
bunch of sissies.
So
There's a lot of
thankfully,
snowflakes in Canada, isn't there?
oh, it's like, oh my God, I used the word dumb. So thankfully, I had turned my camera off at that point anyway, because I was finished my question. I turned off my camera and muted my mic. And I'm so glad, because I was laughing so hard,
Right.
I probably would have been booted off.
That's hilarious. That's something you should have recorded for
funny.
your channel.
Yeah. Well, someone actually commented, I had put out some other video about it, and I did not refer to this whole incident. Someone actually commented underneath, oh, I saw you say, I was watching the stream and I heard you say that. I was so embarrassed for you that, and the fact that you use that language, it's too bad, because now maybe they're not going to even read your position paper.
Oh gosh.
And I said, you know what? Like, I'm not embarrassed at all. I was trying to say things as it, say reality without being foul about what I really think about this kind of stuff. And I said, if we can't even use the word dumb in a comment, I don't know what the world has become.
Right.
But anyway,
Agree.
that's my story. That's where the regulations are going.
Dumb.
Dash cam.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Man, oh man, yeah, that's rough. That is kind of a sad point, though, the person was making. I hope it doesn't undermine your statement or your point. You know what I mean? Because these people are so freaking sensitive that they miss the point. That's that'd be sad.
I don't think it will matter. I mean, this particular individual is, maybe in her defense, only a slight bit in her defense, it is reasonable to remind people to be respectful.
Yeah,
but to call it on the word dumb, that's
But you
just
didn't say
dumb.
they were dumb. You just said that was dumb. You didn't apply it to a person, did you? You applied it to a concept, and therefore it's not disrespectful.
Yeah.
Precisely. And I actually said that in my response to this person who was embarrassed. I said, I come from the telecom industry, and we don't mince words at all in our meetings, in our development work, anywhere. And I would have no hesitation in telling a VP to off, if he said something stupid. And I would, and I have said stuff like that, which is probably why I'm.
And then you guys would go for lunch.
but it's okay to be hard on the problem as long as you're not hard on the people. It's not the people, it's the issue. It's the regulations that are dumb, not the people. So
For sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure XJet has some stories. I know he spent some time at City Hall voicing
I
his
love
opinions.
bureaucrats and politicians and rule makers. They're all my friends. I treat them as family. That's great. Don said some wise words. What's the world coming to? I said in a video I posted this morning, the world's a crazy place. It's an utterly crazy place where logic, common sense, and reason count for nothing. And people are just...
Out the window.
Yeah, it's like, what's gone wrong? I'm hoping it's a pendulum and it's going to start swinging back the other way, but I have my concerns. I may not live long enough to see that.
Yeah.
You get hit by the pendulum on the way.
Exactly.
Hopefully it doesn't fly too far the other way.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't worry me. My philosophy is carpe diem. I mean, I look at this stuff and I comment on it and I try and correct things, but ultimately I'm a spectator. I sit back, I watch what goes on, I have a giggle now and then, and I just do what I want to do. And to my own standards and principles, I don't endanger people or their property, and I have respect for other people and their rights. And although some things are legal, I don't think they're a good idea. So I'm not an auditor. I don't go and fly my drone where I may be legally allowed to, but where it's going to piss people off. I treat people as I'd like to be treated myself, and that generally keeps me out of trouble, especially since I bullied the CIA and that they withdrew. But I mean, I'm just going to carry on. I don't care. The rules don't affect me because compliance by consent, and I withdraw my consent to comply with really bad rules. So I just carry on as normal. And unless I do something really bad, in which case I will deserve to be penalized for it, I don't see any problems.
Right. Yeah, totally. Dan, you're getting a little buzzy again.
You are.
What are you
Dan.
drinking, man?
Your cable is
You know,
cracked.
Bruce, if you follow those principles of, not bothering people, not, staying safe, you're not going to draw any attention, hopefully, except from the Karens of the world. But,
Right.
If you do that, you're not going to draw attention to yourself. You're not going to, have the police ringing at your door. So
Yeah, I'm probably a bit different because I've got a YouTube channel and I have a few trolls that love to report everything I do. But fortunately, the local regulator realizes that they realise now that I'm a pretty safety conscious guy, and I've been flying at a full-size airport for nearly 20 years, never been an incident. Meanwhile, there've been manned aircraft crashing and people hurting themselves all over the place at our airport. But models, not a problem, because we take safety very seriously, and we may look laid back and lackadaisical, but we've always got our ADSB alarm and a radio and people looking out. So we manage the risk far better than anyone else that uses the airport. The local car racing club use it as a drag strip, and they have had several people really badly injured by flying off the runway into the drain and things. We have had 0 injuries. The people on the go-kart track next door, they have an ambulance there every time there's a race because kids hurl themselves into a fence and get carted off with broken bones. And we just carry on flying safely. And so our track record speaks for itself. So, yeah, I think most people just have to take a common sense attitude to these things.
And there's a lot less damage, too, when you crash a plane into the field. You're not destroying even sometimes the crop,
Unless it's an F-35.
Yeah,
We won't go.
But yeah, it's just so much less that you would think.
Yeah,
they
the
would
intrinsic risk is so much lower for where our thing. And we don't get any acknowledgement from the regulators to the fact that this is actually the safest form of aviation there has ever been.
Yeah.
There's a 0 death toll associated with the recreational use of multi-rotor drones, and yet we are being subject to increasingly harsh and restrictive regulation. Meanwhile, manned aviation, people are dying every day, and it's been a couple of really lucky near misses in the USA recently. The swing wing Russian aircraft that the pilots ejected during a display, and it crashed next to an apartment building. And then there was the F-35 just this week that ejected the pilot and took off on its own. Those could have ended very badly. It's only luck that means they didn't. People weren't killed on the ground. And if your safety regime starts with, let's be lucky, that's not a good safety plan. I mean, you always plan for the worst and hope for the best. You don't include luck as one of your chief mitigation factors for risk. Well, that seems to be what's happening at the moment.
Cross your fingers. Hope for the best. That's insane. I don't understand how they lost that F-35. I haven't really read anything about it, but I mean, if my drone goes down, I've got my GPS readout on my goggles. I could read it back and be within like 3 meters of my drone in 30 seconds, How do you lose an F-35? Does it not have...
That was been tracked on Flight Radar 24. I saw the flight track on Flight Radar 24. Yeah. What happened, the last report I read, was that it has an auto-eject system, and that activated. So it kicked the pilot out and then turned off the transponder and kept on flying. I think it's the beginning of the uprising of the machines. All the AI and these things, we thought, we've got some wetware in here we don't need. We'll kick that out, and then we'll be on our own and we're off. Let's bomb New York or something.
Right.
You're going to wonder.
The F-35 200 pounds.
The F-35 has been a problem right from the get-go. It's still a mess from a technological point of view. And it's the biggest white elephant the Air Force has ever had, or the military's ever had in the US. And you can't fix stupid, and it's just getting worse from day to day. I mean, they've fallen off aircraft carriers and sunk to the bottom of the sea, and they've flown off on their own, kicked the pilots out. What will happen next?
Right, totally. I heard from somewhere
on the news put more AI in them.
That jet actually having issues with being hacked. They're saying that those jets are prone to being easily hacked by
Are you serious?
I forget exactly the details, but I heard something about the computers of them being hacked. So that's
the military didn't pay the Bitcoin ransomware fee in time.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knows though? Crazy. So going back a little bit to the Canadian regulations and stuff like that, I was wondering, because there was something about the extended VLOS and the FPV flying solo. Is that going to get changed so that you still don't need a visual line of, you don't need a visual observer when you're in FPV mode, or is that still a thing?
Well, you still do, and sorry, I'm just bringing up what my proposal was on the other screen here. So, in the regulations, there's nothing changed about being a visual line of sight and then the whole connection with FPV. The current regulation says if you're flying with goggles or something covering your eyes, you need to have a spotter that can see your drone and can communicate with you about potential hazards or whatever.
For 250 and above, not for under 250 though.
Correct, for 250 and above, yes. If you're under 250, the only rule is don't do anything stupid, and don't fly near forest fires is included in that. So what I said, or what DPAC said, to be more clear, is the Drone Pilot Association of Canada, is we recommended that this is a good opportunity since they've opened the can of worms of the regulations. They're open to making changes. This would be a good time to change that rule of the line of sight rule to say that it is, you don't need a visual observer. And I'm just reading exactly what I proposed here. That a VO is not required, a visual observer is not required when flying FPV unless the safety of bystanders or third-party property is at risk. And I thank Bruce because he saw my earlier video and he said, no. This should, you're going, because in an earlier version of the position that we had produced, we had a bunch of conditions that would make it safe to fly FPV. Right. But Bruce, to his credit, thank you again, Bruce, said, why don't you turn it around and make the onus on the pilot to determine what is safe to bystanders or property, and leave all the nitty gritty of how far that means and all that as a guideline, because the Canadian regulations exist in what they call the CARS, the Canadian Aviation Regulations, but then there's kind of the hitchhiker's guide to those, which is called the AIM, the Aeronautical Information Manual, which is essentially an English translation, English and French, excuse me, a translation of those regulations so that you can actually make sense of them, because the regulations are written in reverse Polish notation, as far as I can tell. So the kinds of things that they could put into the AIM to supplement what does it mean to fly, safely, and as long as you're not endangering the safety of bystanders or property. So I suggested they could put guidelines in, like, as long as it's within 30 or stay 30 meters away from bystanders, that's safe. If you are within 150 meters of yourself, that's reasonable. And as long as you have, uninterrupted view through your headset of the camera view of where you're going, and sure, you might be able to spin around, but at least that interrupted view is short-lived. As long as you have a reasonable view of where you're going, you're staying away from people, and you're not flying too crazy far away, those are reasonable guidelines. But ultimately, the responsibility should be with the pilot to determine what's safe and what's not safe.
Right, exactly. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But that's not in the regulations. That's just a proposal that the Drone Pilot Association of Canada put forward to Transport Canada. And TC is obligated to at least read it, consider it, and then throw it out. But,
Right, yeah, exactly.
And the precedent's been set with the regulation of sub 250. It's all basically, is non-prescriptive apart from a few little pieces. It's basically the pilot has to make the decision and bear the responsibility if they get it wrong. And that's why can't they extend that, especially to something like FPV, where there has been very little, as far as I'm aware, incidents involving FPV as such.
Yeah,
Correct.
it shouldn't even be a basic license. It should just be a basic understanding. It shouldn't even have to be a fee. It shouldn't have to be anything. It should just be, this is that. Okay, here you go. Like, I don't know. Seems pretty much like way too much governing for something that doesn't need it.
Do they have, when you apply for that, do they have a question, are you or have you ever been an employee of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and that should disqualify you from any drone ownership or use?
I was going to say, yeah, it's mostly the cops that are causing the problems in Canada with drones.
Very true.
They're the only ones that have hit an aircraft so far, I think.
Twice.
Twice. They've done a good job.
Twice, yeah. They're twice manned aircraft.
Yeah, they're leading the world.
But even with that concerted effort to bring down a manned aircraft, they failed.
It's failed, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the trouble when you have two systems, isn't it? I mean, they had Imperial on the drone and Metric on the helicopter, or the other way around. So how does it work with French and English? You must have the same problems. Conflicting language.
I have no idea.
Yeah, French is backwards, English is forward, so yeah, it's pretty tough sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you think ever we're gonna have remote ID anytime soon? Do you think that's gonna be a game in Canada? Well, like, do you think it's gonna change anything here or develop?
Well, I not for an extremely long time. I mean, there's nothing in the regulation proposal that's on the table today that has remote ID. There's nothing.
Thank goodness.
And they started this round, if I'm not mistaken, in late 2021. And here we're in 2023, so 2 years, and they're just in the consulting phase. And it's not expected to take effect until 2024 or at the end of 2024, in fact.
Yeah.
So, you know, and they haven't even proposed anything that has remote ID in it, and they won't until all these regulations are through into implementation. Now, they have been talking about it in committees, and DPAC has not yet been invited to those, but we are now a recognized entity, which we weren't up until last year, basically. And so in our discussions with TC, if they have a forum, a committee, backroom, whatever it is, I would not be surprised if we are welcomed on that committee as a representative of recreational or small commercial drone operators. So at least then we'll have a place at the table. Maybe it's the kiddie table, but at least we're in the room.
Because a lot of these products are now going to be developed with the remote ID either in it, or it's going to be either in the box or binding flies and stuff. So it could almost be even turned on when we don't even know, with a firmware upgrade of a DJI drone. Who knows, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Well, my Mini 3 Pro has it. I've tried the apps that are out there with it sitting there and me here, and my drone doesn't show up. Now, I don't know whether DJI only turns it on in the US.
I see. Interesting.
Yeah,
or not.
I imagine so.
Yeah, I think so. But the thing, in my opinion, the Canadian government in these regulations, damn it, I should have put this in. There's still time. They should actually ban drones from having remote ID that locate the pilot.
Yeah, it raises the risk.
Interesting.
Let me write that down quick.
Write that down.
Any regulation that raises the risk is not a good regulation.
Dan, your microphone again. Crispy mic.
Yeah, it's all your fault.
I don't know. You're having troubles today.
Where am I going to stick this? I'm going to stick it in front of my camera. There we go.
Perfect. You'll always remember. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't have a lot more questions. That was basically it. I mean, you covered it all pretty much in your intro, so that was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I don't know if anybody else has any questions. And Dan, you had a couple questions, didn't you? Or no?
No, I'm good. I covered everything that I think of, but you know what I mean? So
for sure.
there was something that popped up, but I think he touched on it. I don't remember now. I was distracted by my
So when is we as a community going to get our act together and start forming a globally representative body? Will it ever happen? It needs to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. What's it going to take to get everybody singing from the same hymn book and pulling in the same direction? It's the only way we'll be able to effectively push back against all this stupidity.
Yeah, it's pretty tough
Yeah,
because
for
there's
sure.
so many different governing bodies and everybody's got, different areas and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely tough to, we can talk about it, but it's hard to really like form something that's going to change everybody. It'd be great.
Don's done a
Well,
good job in Canada with the drone users group, whatever.
whatever we're called. Here, do
Maybe
you have
that,
to
yeah,
read it?
whatever it is, I don't know. Well, I can't read that. You're too far away. You're half a world away. But maybe that's a good template for other places that are looking at something similar. And maybe Don can be helpful on the world stage by sharing the experiences he's had with creating this group and making it effective as a influencing group. Because I know a lot of other groups in the USA, we've got the AMA and the FPV Freedom Coalition and Flight Test Community Association, all these CBOs, they seem to have no influence at all. It's all done by the commercial sector. The commercial sector dictates the rules to the FAA and they just put a rubber stamp on them by the look of it.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Now, one place, in addition to kind of getting everyone together, but one place that would be interesting to influence is the ICAO organization, because ICAO or ICAO do have, a whole standing body of committees related to drones and UAVs and all that kind of stuff. And oddly enough, their headquarters is in Montreal. So one of my colleagues on the DPAC steering committee is a former member of the airline pilots union. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but and he actually gave me a link to register for one of the ICAO forums to see if somebody who wasn't a member of ICAO could actually register for one of their events. And so that just happened a couple of days ago, and I registered and I got in. Now it's an event I would never want to be part of, but they do have sessions that talk about UAVs and RPAS and all that kind of stuff. And if we could get influence at the ICAO level, I mean, theoretically at least, they put out standards that other countries can reference.
Interesting.
Yeah, I believe that there's some very supportive input to date on drones and model aircraft and so forth. The little bits they have contributed have been very positive in favour of the hobby. So,
Interesting. I never heard of them. I have to look that up.
that's where the big boys fly their planes. Big boy planes, not toys like ours.
Catman, right? Yeah.
But that's the other problem, isn't it? Because we've got, I get really annoyed. I see, because I put videos up and there's always someone comes, leaves a comment. We're in this position because of these damn drone operators and they're endangering aircraft. And I'm thinking, my goodness, and there's someone, one of the old grey-haired people that sit around and talk about model airplanes in the field on a Sunday morning, that, the traditional hobby, they've got it in for drone flyers because they've ruined the hobby for everybody else. And they live in a different world. I mean, I'm an old guy. I fly model aircraft on a Sunday and sit around and talk about them, but I'm also very much aware that drones are an element of the hobby. They're a separate element for many people, but we've got to work together as two communities, not pull each other apart, and blame each other for the problems. Because I always say to the people that say, it's the drones that have ruined things, and I say to them, well, look, model aircraft have killed people. And recreational multi-rotor drones, when used recreationally, have never killed anybody. They're actually safer than us. So don't blame them. And if you look at the number of bad actors in that community, it's a huge community, much bigger than the model aircraft community. And when you look at the news reports, it's such a tiny percentage that have done bad things, usually out of ignorance. And so on a per head of population basis, they are probably better behaved than a lot of manned aviators. No one looks beyond the headlines in the newspapers. That's the big problem. No one's analytically looking at the data and saying, well, things aren't what they appear to be.
I often wonder if if Gatwick had not happened, would any of these regulations exist?
Yeah, well, they've used it as an excuse, haven't they? I mean, because the Commercial Drone Alliance came in and said, to paraphrase what the CDA said, there isn't room in the sky for both us, the commercial operators, and the hobby. Let's get rid of the hobby. And that was the beginning of the end, as we know it. They just stepped in and said, model flyers will have to move out of the way so we can fly our commercial drones. And that has basically been the driving force behind all the regulatory reform. So, I don't know. They have been able to use these little individual incidents as leverage to, and then when the safety thing fell flat, like we've got this impeccable track record of safety with recreational multi-rotor drones. So constantly coming out and saying, we've got to restrict you because safety. Finally, when remote ID came along, they dropped the safety thing, said, it's security, because that safety message had worn so thin and it was so easily debunked. They had to change horses. So, now it's all about security. We don't want people, stealing our national secrets with their drones and spying on you while you're in the shower with their special high-powered cameras that can see through walls and, all this sort of crap.
Gatwick Ghost.
Yeah, I called it the Gatwick Ghost because, apparently it never happened, right? Like, that's my understanding of it. It was never a drone. It was, there's no
I've had a number of people contact me.
It was,
people who know what went on, or say they know what went on, and it was nothing to do with drones. And there's a guy, Ian, in the UK, UAV Hive, he calls himself on Twitter. He's got a whole lot of official information requests in, and a lot of the parties involved have not fronted up with the data they're supposed to by law. So he's had to go to the ombudsman to get them to squeeze the people to do to comply with the requests. And there's so much stuff going on behind the scenes, and everything's it's like pulling teeth. It's so hard to get anything. It makes it very obvious that there is something going on, and there's a lot of people who have got a lot to lose if the truth actually comes out and is revealed. So they're trying to cover everything up. It's a really, in fact, someone was talking about making a Netflix documentary about it just the other day. And so, because he was contacted by someone who said, we're thinking of doing a documentary. So this may come, to the mainstream, and the true facts may eventually be revealed, in which case I would like to see some of this regulation repealed.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the problem with all the stuff in the media, right? It's the classic case of that people only see the bad stuff, and it's such a small percentage. You know what I mean? Like, there's no news stories about good drone things, really. It's all, some guy spying on his neighbor's
sometimes they
teenage
rescue
daughter while
people,
she's sunbathing,
find people.
Yeah.
But I think what we have to do is, because we don't have a body,
but people don't remember the good stuff.
We don't have, like, I see all these bad drone stories in the media. Where is the AMA? Where is the FPV Freedom Coalition? Where is Flight Test Community Association firing off press releases saying this is factually incorrect? You must correct your story. And that's the job of bodies like this, not just to sit there and collect money or just to put up websites and make a name for themselves. They've got to work. They've got to be out there and correcting the misinformation, constantly hitting the media with corrections and it's a lot of work. I try and do it through videos and things, but these organizations that are supposedly representing the hobby, that's what they should be doing, but they're not. They're just sitting
Bruce, when I investigated the Buttonville incident where a police drone hit a Cessna over Toronto, I did contact several media locations, and they didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. I think they were afraid, because criticizing the Transportation Safety Board of Canada. I mean, these are like the angels of the world that walk in and say, oh my, this software had a bug in it causing the plane to crash. They don't want to, at the risk of like losing their license, they can't criticize these organizations. Now, me on the other hand, I don't give a crap. So I actually was in an email conversation with their director of aviation, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada's director of aviation. This was on a Friday afternoon. And she had come back to me. She had seen my video, and she had seen a conversation I had with the boss of the guy who did the investigation. Because in my video, I basically criticized them, saying, your report is nonsense. You didn't point out the problem was that the police guy didn't do anything safe. He actually completely screwed up and flew in controlled airspace off the end of a runway, right in the flight path of a plane. Did not get it authorization. 11 different things. Anyway, so she said to me, you really have to take these things in context. You can't just take things out of context and say that they're wrong. And I said, well, I didn't. I put the whole thing there. And specifically, why did you not say that the root cause of this accident was that the police operator failed to bing, 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 bing. And she said, well, actually, if you read the report, Don, if you read the report, Don, we did have that one as one of the root causes. It's number 4 or whatever it was on the list. And so I was like, oh shit, what have I done? Did I miss something?
Your mic again.
So I looked at the report again, and that finding had the heading right above it that said, these were observations that we made that do not pertain to this incident. And I quoted that. I had a screenshot. I sent it to her. I've never heard back from her since.
Must have been so tempting to use the D word in that conversation.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, man.
Don't ever use the D word with Transport Ken.
Yeah, I can see criticizing the authority is one thing, but criticizing and asking for corrections in news reports where there's factual inconsistencies, that's what I try to do. And for example, the story where it was in the Guardian, I think it was, where and I did a video and encouraged people to write in and complain to the media body that regulates news publishers, and hundreds of people have written to them, and they've got responses back saying, and now it's going to be investigated, and so that reporter will be held to account for writing what was a very misleading article, and that's what we need to do. And then the reporters will realize people are actually looking, and if we get it wrong, we're going to be held to account. So we'll do a better job.
Good. Hey, speaking of
by the way, if you just joined us in chat, the D word is Danzilla.
Shots. What's up?
So Bruce, the incident that occurred, where was it? Was it? I'm thinking Tunisia, but maybe I'm wrong. Where they had the picture of the
radar dome on the front of the plane.
The front flap, and they said, "Oh, potential drone incident."
Yeah, that was Nice in Paris or in France. Yeah. That was. They suggested it was a drone, but apparently the actual report that was filed didn't mention a drone, just mentioned damage. Because if it was a drone, you'd expect to find plastic scuff marks, debris at the end of the runway, but they found none of that stuff. So as far as I'm aware at the moment, it's unexplained. But yeah, if you're going to cause damage to an aircraft, there's going to be traces of drone left on the aircraft. So the fact that the official report apparently hasn't mentioned drone means probably it wasn't a drone. It could have been a piece of ice. Who knows what? It could have been a bird that, bounced off. And I love the way, because I saw a story the other day that said drones are far more dangerous to aircraft because birds are made of water and soft bone. And I'm thinking, have you ever dived off a high board and mistimed it and hit the water, at any speed? Water is every bit as effective as concrete. And I would actually rather be hit by frangible plastic and a battery that basically consists of plastic envelope with some, stuff in it, than by for example, a Canadian goose, at speed.
Oh my goodness, yeah,
very much so.
Totally. And a lot of the drones that I
make
would
a mess
think
of it.
that high up in the air. I mean, it's pretty high up in the air as well, right? Like,
did you see the Daily Mail story?
that's the other
They
thing.
wrote a story because a drone was sighted at 9,500 feet or something by an airline pilot. These are the same airline pilots just today crashed 2 planes into each other on the ground at an airport. They can't see other planes sitting right beside them. They crash into them, yet they can see drones at 3 miles, and a closing speed of 300 knots. Anyway, the Daily Mail said, it is well known that the altitude restrictions on drones can be hacked by software you can download online, and hobbyists often attach 2 or 3 batteries to a drone to let it get to a greater altitude. I'm thinking, can you imagine putting 3 batteries on a DJI Mini? How high could you get that?
Crazy.
just gotta go higher.
That's insane. Where do they get that information from? Because
Make the shit up.
I'm
because
always
it sells
hanging out
it sells
online with drone
advertising.
people, and I'm in the mainstream of the drone world. Like, I pay attention to what's going on in Bardwell and all these people who are building freestyle drones, and I've never heard of anybody doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But that's it. The media today is just. Yeah, there's no accountability in media. I used to be I ran a news site. It was one of the biggest web-based. Well, it was actually at the time the most widely syndicated web-based news service on the internet in 1999, back in the early days. And the principles of the fourth estate meant something then. You know, you had high standards you had to maintain, and if anyone that was writing stuff for me didn't maintain those standards, I told them off. These days, there's no sign of the fourth estate. It's just what will get people to click on the story so the ads will be shown and we'll make money. That's all it is. It's just, and this is going Forbes, the Washington Post, even the big name, non-tabloid publications are all just as bad as the cheap, tap these days. They're all just chasing a dollar, and we suffer as a result.
Yeah.
I need to put clickbait videos out.
And more than just drones.
None of us have ever done that.
Join the Patreon. Yeah. Oh well. I had another question and I just lost my train of thought. Oh, actually, it was somebody in the chat actually mentioned it. Our friend First Squadron says he wanted me to ask you about municipal bylaws that prohibit drones like him in Nanaimo. Do you have any update or anything like that on any bylaws and stuff like that? I guess that doesn't really fall
Did Nanaimo ban drones?
Yeah, there's certain cities and stuff like that here in BC that have banned drones in the area, but those are like, again, like their bylaws. They're not like, to me, like, I don't know. I still
honestly, Marcel, a bylaw is a law. Like if you break it, you can be fined. I don't think you can be thrown in jail necessarily, but it's enforceable. It's real. It's not just something. But so he's right. There are many bylaws in many cities. Toronto, Edmonton seems to be the hotbed of terrible bylaws.
Oh, really?
I received 2 emails today about Edmonton bylaws, strangely enough. I don't know what they're on some campaign. But I mean, these cities set up these bylaws, and the Edmonton one, just to focus on that for a second. I say this only based upon the information this person sent me. I haven't done my own research, so it may be incorrect. But what he said was they ban that you are not allowed to fly a recreational drone on from city property, and you're ever. And maybe you can with permission, but you can't get permission. And commercial drone operators have to pay a fee, like a what do you call it, a film fee or something like this. And so what they've basically done is shut it down in Edmonton, so you can't fly in parks, off sidewalks, on streets, any sort of city-owned property. And of course, they can't actually regulate the airspace above. So if you fly from your own backyard, you can fly over a park, as long as you're not bothering someone in the park in some way, or infringing on their privacy or things like that. But you can fly over,
which nowadays you will be.
But so many of the cities have set up these bylaws. It's really disappointing, and they're all over the place. It's not like there's one template that they're using that you can then kind of zero in on and break it down and maybe get it changed. Every city seems to have their own version of this stuff with different notions about what is okay and what is not. The better ones at least reference the Transport Canada regulations, but then they go way above and beyond to control the use of what I consider taxpayer property, which seems counter to thou shalt not use a drone. I mean, does that mean you can't throw a baseball? Much more dangerous. So I don't know what to do. It's a target-rich environment. Let's put it that way. But so much effort to bust one of these bylaws down the middle and get somebody to change. I don't have the energy to do it at the moment. Maybe I'll take on that project. Maybe we'll get somebody within the Drone Pilot Association to say, you know what, I'm gonna champion this. I'm gonna try to change the bylaw in my little town, and then we can use that as a model in other places. Right. But it's a It's awful.
It is. It's very hard. I had the same problem here. It took me 5 years to get our district council to allow drones in the parks, and their thing was that it's a public nuisance. It'll be a public nuisance, and I challenged them to provide information to confirm that it was a public nuisance. You know, how do you know this? Are you just assuming? And there's also some countries have things where a council may not pass a law that is simply a duplication of a national government law. You know, you can't have two laws for the same thing. So I used that tack as well, saying there are already laws that protect people from public nuisance. You can't produce another law that reproduces that, because then you've got double jeopardy. You charge twice for the same offence. You can't do that. And the other problem you have is that the duration of tenure for a lot of councillors is in New Zealand, it's only 3 years. So you just get one council up to speed and they're starting to warm, and then there's an election and you got a whole lot of new guys. And we hate drones, and you go right back to zero. And I even had the civil aviation regulator write a letter to the chief executive of the local council saying that they have no problem with people flying drones in the parks. It's legal to fly drones in the parks. And the chief executive officer of the council read this letter out in a council meeting and said, yes, well, this is just their opinion. It doesn't necessarily apply to us. You know, like, these are the people that regulate the country. We don't care about the national regulator. We're going to do our own thing. It just was so hard. Finally, when there was a composition of council, some of the worst anti-drone councillors were actually away, and there was a council meeting, and there was a quorum, and enough of the quorum were there to vote to allow drones. So I managed to get all the right people in the right room at the right time. They voted to allow drones. When the mayor came back and the other councillors came back, they were outraged and they said, we're going to reverse this. And I said, you can't. It's a decision of council. You're just another councillor and you're just a mayor. You cannot unilaterally reverse this. So it's stood ever since. But it was so hard to get it done because people are stupid.
Yeah. It's problematic.
Don,
and you need to... Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
Go on. No, go on.
I
had a lighter question.
You have to, you have to find the right angle. You need to find the right person who's willing to champion it, because they're not going to listen to just some idiot, that wanders in off the street. That you need to, form the relationship with the counselor. And as you said, then they're gone by the time you've got them convinced.
Yeah. The other thing people underrate is tenacity. I think a lot of these organizations think if we hold them at arm's length long enough, they'll get tired and go away. I never go away. I just kept on coming back, and eventually they decide, oh, what the hell? I can't be bothered fighting this war anymore. Let's let them do it. That works surprisingly well at all levels of government and bureaucracy, because bureaucrats don't like doing any more work than they have to. And if you make their life so hard because they constantly have to readdress the same complaints and the same issues, they give up eventually because they just want to sit back and drink their coffee and eat their donuts.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Which is what we pay them for. So.
Exactly.
First Squadron is saying, isn't it a jurisdiction issue? I can't even say it. I can't even say
Municipality.
Yeah. Regulate airspace. Can
What's that in French? What's the French word for municipality?
Oh, geez, I don't even know.
Come on, you're Canadian. You must be bilingual.
So as far as I know, no municipality has claimed that they can control what you can do in the airspace, because at least the better ones, the more recent regulations that have come in, respect the fact that you have to, if we are going to allow you to fly in Edmonton, I'll just use Edmonton just as a guinea pig. You have to at least abide by all the Transport Canada rules and be registered and all that kind of junk. So, they usually refer to those. But where they do have jurisdiction, there's two places, and these are problematic. Number one is what you do on the ground. They have absolute and 100% control over what happens on the ground, just like you do. You could tell somebody to get off your front lawn. If you own that piece of turf, you can tell them to get off and not fly their drone there. And they can't say, well, I'm just flying over. I said, no, you're standing on my grass, get off. So the municipalities do have the right to control what happens while you're standing there. And so that's number one. Number two, and this is the place where it gets a little gray, is they can control what you can do above the ground in the air if it is impacting somebody who is using the ground, right? So for example, if somebody is, sunbathing nude in the park, which may or may not be legal, you can't fly a drone over them and invade their privacy.
Right.
And I apologize for the terrible example, but you can't invade people's privacy. So
Can you give us a better description, Don? What does this woman look like?
well, I have a picture here. I took
She's on the thumbnail. She's on the thumbnail. He's saving it. Dan, your mic.
You get all excited and you start to buzz.
Wow.
So there's the privacy angle, and there's the being, using the phrase that you use, Bruce, the being a nuisance kind of thing. If you interfere with other people's enjoyment of the municipal park, or the sidewalk or anything like that, then yeah, you are technically breaking a bylaw, and it's not an overlap of the jurisdictions between airspace and the use of the property.
The other problem we have in New Zealand is that we've got a very unusual situation where the civil aviation controls the airspace, but they have effectively delegated the authority to deny drone use to the property owner. So we can't fly anywhere in the country without the prior permission of the property owner. CAA has said the property owner can decide whether you're allowed to fly over their property or not. So they've delegated that, which means in the case of the local council here, they were saying you can't fly over our parks. So it doesn't matter. I lived right beside a park. I couldn't take off with my drone and fly over the fence because it would have been a breach of the civil aviation regulations, because the civil aviation regulator said the property owner has the right to deny you, and if they deny you and you fly, you're in breach of the rule. So that made it very difficult here, and that rule is still in place. Actually, it's the most widely ignored rule on our list of regulations, but it's still in place. Our regulations haven't been updated for nearly 9 years, so they are way out of date.
So you got over that thing about flying over the fence by flying through the fence, if I recall correctly.
You've seen me fly there. You've seen how bad I am. There wasn't a gap until I went through.
Yeah.
Jeez. Wow.
A drone-shaped hole.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, Don, what is Toronto doing right now? I haven't been back to Toronto for a few years, and I was thinking, it might be nice to move back there one day, but if I'm not allowed to fly my drone, screw that. I'm not moving back to Toronto.
Somebody in chat says he flies in Toronto, Riot 9. But Riot 9, you're not in Toronto.
No, Riot 9's in east coast of Australia.
Yeah, what's he saying?
He's full of it.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, I'm just curious. I don't know. Did Toronto...
There is a bylaw. I could probably quote the number, but there is a bylaw for Toronto that says you can't fly rockets and lasers and stuff like this in Toronto parks, in municipal parks. So you can't fly those there, but there is not as far as I know, a bylaw that says you can't fly from the sidewalk or places like that are public property but aren't a park per se. I know there's a park rule. Now that said, I mean there's also one in Ottawa, and when I used to live in Ottawa, I flew from parks. I flew from school grounds, not when school was in session. If somebody complained, I could have got in trouble. I never, anytime anyone came by, I would, get out of the way. I would apologize. If I would say, I hope I'm not bothering you. And everyone would say, no, that's cool. Can I have a look? They always, everyone I've encountered over the years, with one exception, have been enthusiastic about, isn't that interesting? Isn't that cool that you do that?
Totally. Yeah,
the one exception threatened to shoot the drone down. And oddly enough, I didn't put this together until just now. Oddly enough, he said, well, sometimes my wife sunbathes nude in the backyard and you were right over my house. So.
Now you know.
Now I know. Thank you, Jack.
Even more reason not to fly there.
Yes.
GPS marker, drop it right there.
Yeah.
Google Earth update.
Are there any questions in the chat that I've missed here?
I was looking through them. I think that's pretty much it. Jim's droning is in Ontario. He says he flies parks all the time. Some council don't like certain policies, so they don't pass said policies. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm right near Algonquin too. It makes me kind of sad because there's a lot of nice places to fly there, but you're not allowed to fly in the parks, the provincial parks.
Have you ever asked a park superintendent for Algonquin Park for permission?
No, I haven't. I don't really go there that often, so yeah, I haven't gone because I've just assumed I can't fly.
Yeah, well, you can if you get permission. So that's why I ask.
Yeah.
This is an interesting story. I've done, I think, 3 videos, what I call hike and drone videos, from a conservation area that's just up the road from me, where I go on a hike and I talk about some nonsense and I fly my drone and it's all very pretty and everything else. And before doing the very first one I did like that, I checked the website. It's a conservation area. It's not a provincial park in Ontario. But they have a website, and they very specifically had, a set of things you cannot do in the park. Drones were not mentioned. And then it said winter use, because this park is pretty much inaccessible in the winter. But they said in the winter, you are not allowed to, go through in snowmobiles, ATVs, or any mechanized device, including a drone.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, okay. So they've misplaced the rule, and I was safe. They as long as I'm flying in the summer, I'm okay. If there's snow on the ground, I can't go in the park. Fair enough. But totally, as far as I was concerned, even though it was clearly just a gaffe in their regulation, I was okay to do it.
Right.
So I flew three separate videos over a couple of years, well, a year and a half, I guess, from that park. On the third one, somebody commented under my video and said, I just checked the rules. Did you have permission to fly there? Because it says you can't fly drones in the park. And I go to their website, and sure enough, they've changed it. They've rearranged it so that the drone part is anytime, and they have some other winter regulations. Okay. So I was like, oh crap, now what have I done? So I looked through their other regulations, because one of their other things that they have, it's what do you call it? It's kind of a remote park, not really remote, but there's a parking lot. There's no parking lot attendant, and they have a sign that says, dial this number to use our app or something like this to pay for parking in the parking space. Okay. Now, as it happens, there is no cell coverage in this place, so you can't use their app to pay for parking. So I've never bothered to pay for parking, but I do know that you can buy a parking pass. So after I discovered about they've changed the rules, I did buy the parking pass, and my next step will be to contact them and say, do you mind if I do another video like these 3 that I've done when I thought it was okay to fly there?
But you can't do it in the winter with the snow, because you get snow on your propeller and then you can't fly.
I don't know. When I fly long range, I gotta be snow.
You get the de-icer. Hose it down with de-icer.
Yeah, right.
I guess my question was, I had a question for you, Don.
WD-40 in Canada?
Sorry.
Yeah, maybe. My question for Don was about the park, the process for getting permission to fly in the park. Do you know anything about it? Is there an official thing on the website? You got to go fill out a form, or you just go talk to the guy at the gate and say, "Hey, can I fly my drone?"
For Ontario, I think there's an email address that you can call or email, basically, or a number you can call. But honestly, walking right up to the guy face to face and showing him your tiny drone that you're going to fly, and saying, I'd love to get some pictures. I'm going to be high up in the air so that I'm not bothering the bears and the caribou and all the rest of the stuff. Yeah. You might have more luck doing that than sending an email off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's always good when you run into those guys who are like, I didn't see anything. Go ahead.
Yeah, avoid the paperwork. Yeah. Or you might say, come around this time of the day or something.
Yeah. Sorry, Marcel. I don't know whether it's my volume, but I can barely hear you.
Wow. It changed again.
That's
okay. We're almost...
Is it just me? Or...
we're almost wrapping up, I think.
He's
anyway.
quieter than he was.
He was being quiet.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe he's got a bad connection because he keeps kind of dipping out the video.
Well, hopefully it's not.
Yeah, I really
Yeah,
wanted
just
to
clicked up then.
fly Algonquin.
Better.
The colors in
it's louder.
Algonquin were amazing last year. I don't think they'd let me though
Okay.
during color season because it's just this traffic of tourists is insane. There's just Algonquin Park is just stupid with tourists. Like it's like a traffic jam trying to drive through the park in the fall.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'd be like, oh yeah, go ahead, fly your drone, just because there's just people everywhere.
It's
maybe in the
it's a
off-season.
shame because, of course, it's a beautiful park, huge park. What is it like? This,
Yeah.
It's the size of like Scotland or something like this. It's something insane. The size
Yeah,
of
it is.
Algonquin,
I think
yeah, it's
so,
pretty
yeah.
big. Yeah,
yeah.
Algonquin's huge.
And
It's like Texas,
the
isn't it?
nice
I
thing
can't
is-
remember.
you could fly very, very close to Algonquin Park and get all the same effect and not be inside the park.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. But they got some good vistas in there, the classics. The group of 7 would be proud of me.
yes,
There you go.
group of 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually flown a couple parks here in BC, but I've had the exact same experience where I just walk up to the guy at the gate, tell him what I'm doing, super early in the morning too. They don't really care. I didn't have to do any paperwork for golden years. I went there twice. Once just to hike, and I was gonna fly. I didn't fly. I just kind of scoped out the area. Well, I did fly actually around the river a little bit, but then I hiked up about 2 hours up the mountain into this Evans Valley, it's called, and it's the bottom of Golden Ears Peak here up in Vancouver, and flew my drone just around the valley of it. Beautiful shot. Yeah, it was really cool.
Nice.
Nice.
But yeah, all you have to do a lot of times is same with my very first long range flight I did, 6 kilometers with
To the limits of visual
Rigor
line of sight.
Yeah, I had my spotter there, so my buddy was there and everything.
Sure, I'm sure you will.
But yeah, no, the guy was like totally fine with it. He's like, yeah, go ahead, just come up and then come back down when you're done right away, and no big deal. And I'm just like, all right. But this was all years ago too. This is like, I'm talking about a couple of years now. So things have changed and people have gotten either, different attitudes about it, definitely, right? But still, I think the best option is just ask, or beg for forgiveness after.
Perhaps, yeah.
But
It's easier to ask for forgiveness.
oh, you're back to the staticky mic again.
Ah,
You want to return that mic for a refund, man.
Yeah, I would definitely change the cable out. Everyone's always having audio issues with live streams, though. It's a pretty tough one sometimes.
It is, yeah, for sure. Here's a fun, here's something fun and weird. The Hover RX one, and I don't have an affiliate link. I don't get a commission for this. I just think this thing is ridiculously cool and controversial at the same time. What it is it's a 125 gram drone. You can fly it without an app, like just literally by using a couple of buttons on here. You can launch it, make it do dronies, do circles around you, all that kind of stuff. It's got some fancy little features so that it removes the prop noise out of the audio if you set it up properly, and one out of every 4 times it works. But it's interesting for this reason, from a regulatory perspective. Once you push that button, it's doing the thing completely autonomously. What rules apply to that?
All the same rules. Because look at delivery drones, they're autonomous too, but the rules apply to them as well.
Well, are they autonomous, or are they being flown
They have a
remote?
pre-programmed. Well, like I know Wing is pre-programmed flight path. Source,
like
just take off point, landing point, and there's no one there with FPV goggles flying the damn thing. So
Yeah,
have
DJIs
10
have the
10
waypoints and everything. Same idea.
yeah, so
But the definition of, in Canada, of a drone, or RPAS as we call them, is a remotely piloted aircraft.
But I mean, if you build a model aircraft with something like INAV or with ArduPilot and you program a flight course, it's still covered by UAS rules. It's just yeah. I think this looks like a miniature version of the original Skydio, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, in fact, it's done by the same people who did that. Oh, what's it called? V-copter, the two rotor thing.
Oh wow.
It's not done by some disgruntled DJI engineer who was outraged at the price that they were charging for things, and they set up their own company and then a special price.
This thing is a special price of $400.
Whoa! I wonder why there's so many of them been flogged on YouTube.
That's $400 Canadian, so it's only like 250 American.
25 cents American.
Correct. It's actually 400 US.
Oh, is it really 400 US? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's a lot of money for something like that.
That's like a whole paycheck.
But you know, for somebody who doesn't fly drones or doesn't want to fly drones, doesn't want to learn all the regulations, but they just want to, you know, stick something cool in their vlogs, you know, when they're talking about their latest mascara. This is a very
I wonder if they make an F-35 with that technology, a model F-35 that'll fly itself. You know,
you do a droning with your F-35.
Without any kind of pilot input. That'd be great.
That'd be great, yeah. Just some buttons on the top.
Do you get a good camera for $400? Do you get a good camera in that thing? Or
What is it? Yeah,
it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good. It's 2.7K, 30 frames per second, or 1080p at 60 frames. It's the images are stable as hell. It's got vibration on the gimbal, but it's not gimbal stabilized. It's
floating
electronic image stabilization and horizon leveling.
You see those ex-DJI engineers, they got a 12-axis gimbal on that thing that they sell. It's fantastic.
I love that commercial. It's so stupid.
12-axis.
Yeah. It's cutting-edge technology. You put your finger in the prop, you'll find out.
Dimension as well.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah, I was going to say the fourth dimension.
At least, yeah. My gosh.
It bends time and space.
It's military spec.
Selfie.
Military spec, according to the
military spec.
Yeah.
That's the biggest pile of PS ever.
So can you put bombs on it?
All right, well, we've usually played videos for you guys in the chat. I've only got 3 videos lined up. This one is from here in BC. Sounds like the water is already running in this video for some reason. I don't know what's going on. Someone's got like a tapper or something.
Who would want to fly in PC? Places
Denzel, are you tapping?
PC's it. Oh.
I just want to say, I see the comment that says Sam Squatch hunting.
Yeah.
I'm a big Trailer Park Boys fan, so good on you.
Yeah, Sam Squatch is awesome. That's Riot9, our Australian friend. Thanks for joining us all the way from Australia. And we got Brent Ariels too. I didn't see you come in, buddy. Thanks for coming in, Gary.
Hey, Gary? I didn't see it either. I ran into Gary last weekend.
Andrew has a question. Extra. Are you Scottish? Which explains your determination and stubbornness.
No, I'm just old.
Just old.
Why do you wear a skirt?
Oh, you have seen my OnlyFans page, guys. Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. This is nice scenic long-range footage. I usually know all the spots, but I don't know this location at all. But not very many spots like this. Or there's a lot of spots like this. There's not like anything that, you know, you're pointed out of the air, like a building or something.
You wouldn't want to have to recover it if it landed, would you?
Mm-mm. Well, I mean, at least it looks like it's accessible where he's flying so far.
What in the? I thought there was a beaver dam, then I realized the scale of the trees. It was like, what?
Yeah.
I never fly further away than I want to walk.
Is it, Marcel, is there haze on the actual video, or is that just like standard BC smoke.
No, that's the haze from the BC smoke. Yeah, that's the natural haze that we've had here for a while. It's kind of slowly disappearing. So I haven't really been doing much long range flies at all. So, hey, Advanced City RC is here, and he says it's near Princeton, BC. Well, welcome in, Van City RC. Good to see you. Definitely not able to recover it if it went down. No doubt.
It's only the first month of spring, and already there are 73 active bushfires in Australia.
Wow. My gosh.
So we get the smoke, it blows across the Tasman Sea. We get all the smoke and the fancy sunsets and things when all the bushfires get going over there. And it's supposed to be El Nino this year, so they're looking at 45 plus temperatures. It's going to be a bit incendiary, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Great shot from Princeton.
Yeah, that's super. Gary of Brand Ariel says he's waiting on his SFOC application. That was for, I can't remember the event that you were going to fly over, but or invited to fly. So good luck with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's for, what is that? SFOC, what's that again?
That's a special flight operating certificate. You need to do that if you're flying at what Transport Canada calls an advertised event.
Mm-hmm.
He was invited to fly there by the organizer. And by the way, the Drone Pilot Association of Canada has proposed, you know what? How about Transport Canada? You step out of line here, get out of the way. We'll coordinate with the organizer of the event as to, you know, who can fly there or who cannot fly there. And yeah, another rule change that is undoubtedly not going to happen.
Right.
Because we know paying money makes things safer.
Yeah, a little bit more money. Yeah, double the price. Let's go.
Safety is spelt with a dollar sign at the front.
Yeah, well,
not yes.
as far as I'm concerned, what it's going to do, this new regulation where you have to pay for flying, it'll just mean people won't even bother applying, let alone complying.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
What's another? You got another video, Marcel?
Yeah. I was gonna ask a question, but I'm gonna ask it afterwards, after the stream. But let's go back over to there and check this one out. This one's in Toronto. This is Organized Confusion's channel.
Ah, Dave.
The Metropolis. So no flying in Toronto, but he's flying, I'm guessing, with an advanced license at least, or something that gives him a little bit more permission to fly in some of these areas in Toronto. Because I know there's, like, when I look at the bubbles, as they say, around Toronto where the no-fly zones are, it like pretty much takes up the whole city almost, right?
Yeah, so Dave is flying a sub 250 gram drone. I think he's got a Mini 3 Pro now, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
So those bubbles, as long as he's staying low and being very careful, he's okay with. He always flies from locations. I've actually interviewed him on one of my videos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's called something like Tips for Flying in Cities. And he always flies from locations where he knows he's not violating any property rights or anything like that. He often flies, and this is a good example, at early hours of the morning so that there's fewer people on the ground. I mean, it's rush hour, as you could probably see in one of those shots, but at least there's not, there's traffic going into Toronto. But, you know, even this shot, it looks like he's over the highway. He's not. He's beside it, and so he's always very careful. I have a lot of respect for his flights. Some people have criticized him as encouraging others to fly and maybe not be as careful as he is, but he's careful. I know he is.
Right, for sure. People are always going to be a bad actor. There's something they've seen, try it and not understand what they're doing or how they're doing it. And some of these DJI drones have zoom, right? So you have to understand that maybe the drone's not exactly where you think it is at all times, right? Just you're watching the video. Denzel, I'm sorry to say it, but you're crackling again. But we're gonna watch one more video and we're gonna be calling it a night. I've got one here, a local friend, Bart, who got a chance to fly at the racetrack here in Mission.
Sure.
Well, while you're setting that up, I'll mention that in some of Dave's videos, he goes over the tops of these like 60-story skyscrapers and then drops the gimbal down as he goes over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And it would always make me barf, like literally gag when he did it.
Right.
And I credit him with desensitizing me enough that I could do a skydive. So
Oh yeah.
Brilliant.
So I'm guessing that this would have to be somebody who has an SOC, because this is definitely an event, maybe not advertised event, right? But yeah, I think this would be like a weekly meetup type of event, right? So I know these guys that are doing this, they have their basic and some of them have their advanced, but it's pretty much closed for just these guys that are driving. It's not like spectators at this one.
yeah, so if you have, if it's a closed event and you have permission of the organizer and the drivers are somehow in on it, then yeah, it's fair play.
Oh, yeah.
There's some more muddiness there too, though. But what defines an advertised event? If I put a flyer on a telephone pole, one flyer on a telephone pole, is that, if I tell 10 of my friends on Facebook, is that an advertised event? Like, does it have to be? Theoretically, one flyer on a telephone pole. Do they still do that? I guess they do. It counts as advertising.
Yes, it is Mission Raceway.
Yeah. It's a dumb phrase, and it's poorly defined. They just say, if it's open to the public and it has been advertised to the public, then it's an advertised event. So Facebook, is that the public or only people who are on the Facebook,
Silly basis for a rule, right?
Yeah, it is. And it leaves it kind of open for, interpretation, right? Really. Watching from the Okanagan, Zero Fluff. Welcome in, Zero Fluff. Yeah. Yeah, exactly like Ryan 9 said. Very open-ended, so the net is wider. Yeah, I'll catch you on anything.
Yeah. The net doesn't work unless it's open-ended.
Very true.
There's some great shots in this.
Yeah, great tracking.
Yeah. Chase footage is so much fun to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Especially drifting, because you get the angles of the drone and the car being different angles, and kind of screws with perspective a little bit when you're kind of chasing something that's going the opposite drift as you are. Neat.
This activity is sponsored by Goodyear.
Exactly. I was just going to say.
On today's episode of Dumb Phrases, brought to you by your local government. Nice one, Blizzard.
This sort of stuff's especially adrenaline building, because if you crash on the track, you're probably going to get your drone run over before you can recover it. So
No kidding.
Oh, yeah.
No kidding.
I am not an athletic person, but I crashed on the road in front of my place the other day. You ain't never seen me run so fast. Listening for cars coming, I was like, oh, geez.
Yeah.
Looking at my
Last
goggles,
weekend
I could see it.
2 weekends ago, we had a little drone meetup near Kingston, and Gary of Brant Aerials was there. And Gary, if you don't mind, I'll repeat your story. He's on his third. Oh, what is it? Air 2S, not an Air 2S, but I'll say it's an Air 2S.
No, third.
Yeah, something like that. And the last one he crashed, he was flying and sideways, doing some in orbit or something like this, and he ran into a light standard, and it was like, oh no! But then he saw it fall to the ground, and everything, it was clearly not too badly damaged. And as he's going over to pick it up, a truck ran over it.
Did you refresh cover that?
Yeah.
He actually recovered the SD card, but the camera stopped as soon as it hit. So, but,
Yeah, was there a DJI care refresh on it? Did they get it
no.
renewed? No.
Oh
Yeah.
wait, wait. He told me, and I can't remember the answer. Gary, was there a care refresh? I think there was.
I think it's past his bedtime.
They must have
over there.
shelves at DJI with like a Hall of Fame of drones sent in for Care Refresh. I'd like to see that room. You see this one this guy sent in.
Jeez. Well, I don't know if he's still in the chat, but no, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. I've never had to do that, that's for sure. Oh, there he is.
Pancake my drone, DJ care. It did cover me. Yeah, okay. I couldn't be sure. Couldn't remember. Excellent.
Pancaked it. Nice. Wow. like a cartoon, Looney Tunes pancake.
It was a great story. Gary told it better because he actually knew the facts as opposed to me just making it up on the fly.
Yeah, it sounded pretty good either way, though.
And then the bugger. I mean, Gary is famous for running into cables and stuff like hydro cables. So
Yeah.
I'm wandering around this event, and he says, "Oh, Don, can you see what I just did?" And he points, and I'm looking, and it's like I see these power lines off in the distance, and I could see a drone right on the power line. And I'm like, "You've
Just
got to be
hanging there.
kidding! Did you just run into that power line again?"
Oh, man.
And then he flew the drone away. He was like 2 feet behind it. Little bugger! I'm gonna get you, Gary. It really looked like he was stuck.
That's funny. That's funny.
See if I can find a video from Golden Ears or something to end on. You guys in the chat have any other questions for our guests? Let me know. Shout now, forever hold your pizza.
Pizza.
I have a great flight that I would love to share with you, but I can't. It took me 16 tries to get it right, and all it was a simple droney pulling away from me. But the final result is in my retirement video that will come out next week.
Did you say?
Gotta have the fly more combo for that one.
All right, what we got here. Why doesn't Transport Canada step in and rule that all civic provincial parks are nonsense? Sort of like FAA rules over the USA airspace.
Well, they would be within their rights to do that if the municipal rule said anything about airspace itself. But most of the municipal rules, like I said earlier, focus on use of the ground and preventing you, even if you're in the air, from interfering with other people enjoying the park space or actually wildlife. I should have mentioned that also. If you're chasing, Canada geese across a lake, you're being a dick. So don't do that.
Yeah, totally. Totally. All right, so I had a quick video here we'll end on. Call it a night. I know you're up a little bit late too over there in Ontario, so.
Yeah, what time is it? Oh, it's 20 to 11.
So this is the hike, the fly that I did Evans Valley at the bottom of Golden Ears.
Looking forward to seeing that. By the way, I work tomorrow. It's my 4th last day.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations, eh?
He's very old.
No more working for the man. Where in New Zealand are you, Bruce? I don't even know. Are you close to mountains and pretty scenery, or
No, there's not a lot of pretty scenery. We're a
Flower
forestry
parks?
area. There's mainly just trees and dairy farms around here. There's not a lot of pretty stuff. But we've got a big lake about an hour to the south, and the coast's only about an hour away. So yeah, I'm going to do some hiking this year and get up there amongst all the lovely splendor and try and get some good footage. But I'm not so much into cinematography as I am into chase videos. I like chasing model aircraft and dirt bikes and stuff like that.
Nice.
Wow. I think you could get a lot of clicks if you did some of, like, remade some of the aerials from Lord of the Rings. They're flying over the mountains.
Yeah, it's way down the other end of the country. And, well, we've got Hobbiton's just down the road,
Yeah,
so go to
Hobbiton,
Hobbiton. I don't think I let you fly drones at Hobbiton, and it's $85 to get in. Ridiculous.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
How much is that in freedom dollars?
In American dollars, it's about 30 cents. The New Zealand peso is not worth much.
I wish I
think
could
it's about
picture
it.
I
Mike.
thought you guys were close to us.
I wish I could
Yeah.
picture Mike Dan, yeah. So this random rock I was standing on, it took me a minute to fly around and actually figure out where the hell I was once I got in the air, but once I found myself, I was okay. Did a couple more flights after, but you can kind of see that I'm leaning up the mountain too, which is funny where I'm standing.
What's the quad, Marcel?
This is a 7-inch. I think this was the Big E from Rotor Village here in Canada, which I don't have anymore. But a big 6S GPS unit, whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
This one ended up going for a drink in the river.
No,
But,
I've got Nora 7, which I use for this sort of stuff, and it's got lithium ion pack. I get about 25 minutes out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Same around here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Once again, thank you very much, Don Joyce, for the update and all the stuff about Canadian regulations. Is really
Yes,
really helpful
thank you.
for a lot of people in the chat and myself and Dan. And
Yeah.
Again,
And in
Jeff,
answer
thanks for
to
joining us.
first squadron there,
Mhm.
no, they can't prevent you from taking off or landing from your own property.
No. Yeah, no way. Yeah, thank you very much, XJet, for joining us once again. Great to see you on other streams and as well as mine. So I appreciate your information and your your friendliness, your everything, man. You're a great person in the community and great talking with you. Always got lots of
No
information.
worries, man.
Yeah. All right, everybody else, have a good weekend, and we'll see you guys on the next stream. Take care of yourselves.
Right. And remember, the D word is Danzilla.
Live long and drone.
There you go.
Yeah. Did I do that? I can't do that.
Great.
Ciao, everyone.
Ciao. All right, awesome.